of advice do you have to homeowners?
Practicing that preparedness. Starting the conversation now is always going to be a benefit to any association out there. And welcome to Recovery Report Live, where we provide you actionable real estate and business insurance takeaways to update, educate, and inform you weekly. I'm Dan Odess, president of GlobalPro, where we manage risk to recovery, and we have managed more than $1 billion in recovery. Today I want to focus on business owners, business income type claims, and talk about the things that are going on in the US as far as the loss and disaster, but skip to the part where you've recovered the money you're entitled to and you're rebuilding and ensuring that now you don't prejudice yourself. And the reason why I want to take that conversation there is because I want to make sure you as business owners are prepared to ensure that when you enter into this cycle where you have the policy, you get a claim, you have a recovery, you rebuild, and then you're going to have to get insurance again. It's just a cycle. There's no real definitive end and beginning to it. The only real beginning would be, I guess, when you formed the business itself. But once you've entered into that cycle, it just keeps going. And at any point during that cycle, you could prejudice yourself, and you want to avoid any certainty or any uncertainties with regards to coverage downstream. And what you do today may, in fact, impact you. So let's talk about how the economy in the US is really rolling, right? We're seeing a lot of good things here as far as people getting back to business. There's a lot of talks about offices and urban and dense areas, employees coming back. Obviously, there still is the looming risk of the pandemic and the issues and obviously sickness and COVID, and we need to be cautious and careful of those things. But you're starting to see many jurisdictions, Texas and Mississippi being more recently, where they roll back the mask restrictions and really want businesses to get back to 100%. And I think that was the words that the governor used there. And so it is what it is, whether you have certain political beliefs or health beliefs or whatever it may be, it's happening. And so, but and our conversation isn't about politics. It isn't about health and safety. It's about insurance and you as a business owner protecting your bottom line. And that's what insurance is for. You buy insurance to protect that bottom line. And I want to make sure that you are also protecting yourself once you've entered into that cycle. You've created the business, you bought your first policy, now you're in that cycle. And again, at any point during that time, whether it's from placing the insurance to recovering from a loss or rebuilding, to getting new insurance, you may prejudice yourself. And it's important that you take certain steps during the claims process now to make sure that you don't prejudice yourself on the back end as you move through this process. And it's really important that all business owners, whether impacted from winter storms, tornadoes, or whatever the loss or disaster may be, take steps to collect the correct information, properly represent claims, recover the way they do, and also document the rebuilding efforts, align that with whatever it was on the recovery side to ensure, some things we'll talk about, a recovering becoming income. How are you going to deal with that? And obviously you want to consult with your professionals, whether it's tax professionals, CPAs, or attorneys, but these things are real and you need to start considering and thinking about it. So in general, like I've mentioned several times, insurance is a cycle. There's no definitive beginning in once you've entered into that cycle. So we need to make sure that you're operating your business and you're obtaining the policy you need, you're recovering from the claim that you had, you're rebuilding what you need to rebuild in order to continue operating, and then you're getting new insurance upon renewal that's going to continue to protect you in those interests. So, and we talk a lot about weathering the storm and why you have insurance, right? Insurance is that road to recovery. It helps you on that road to recovery, to getting the money you need in order to be there tomorrow. But how you actually present your income losses may, in a way, as I mentioned now several times, prejudice you. So a business owner has an insurance policy that covers them for business income, which is really the specific topic for this presentation today and what we want to talk about to make sure that all of you are aware of it. And a business owner is generally covered for losses during the period of restoration. What that means in lay speak is the time it takes to actually recover, but it goes a little bit before and beyond that too. So you need to consider the time when the loss occurred and you have a basically the deductible period. That's 72 hours, which is typical of most policies. What does that loss mean? Again, we're talking about the rebuilding and obtaining new insurance, right? We're talking about after you've gotten the money. What did you do with the analysis for the 72 hours? Don't just push it aside and forget it. Make sure that you properly document it, because again, what you don't recover can potentially be deducted from your taxes or reported differently when it comes to taxes and things like that. So it's really important, again, consult with your tax professionals and make sure that this isn't a one-size-fits-all thing. So make sure it fits for your situation. And I'm giving you some general concepts and terms and information to know. So full disclosure, disclaimer there. These are things that we've seen, pitfalls and issues. Again, take this information, at least if anything else, you leave here today thinking about these things differently, and you kind of go on to helping protect your business in the future and making sure that you have what you need when you get that next policy. So again, remember that properly document the 72 hours. Don't just literally start your evaluation on the 73rd hour, okay? Make sure you document 72 hours, because there may be a way for you to take credit for that on your taxes and report those losses as things that you did not recover for, and make sure that you properly create the demarcation from that period of time towards your period of restoration. Now, the policies will generally cover you for a period of time beyond what it took to actually rebuild the actual building or to get your business back to operating, whether that's fully staffing it, whether that's just the sticks and bricks that were damaged by whatever the disaster or the loss may be. But you need to look at your policy for those specifics. How long after you rebuilt the sticks and bricks that were damaged by this loss can you get a recovery for? And so that's going to be essential to ensuring that you do have a proper allocation or properly accounted for those losses. So we've now talked about the period of time before you actually get a recovery, the recovery analysis, that's typically 72 hours. And now we're talking about the period, the period of time beyond when you've rebuilt the sticks and bricks. Again, important to understand what you're covered for in that period of time. And it's usually a time that until you're profitable or operating again. And now looking at the center of that evaluation and understanding during that period of restoration what you're covered for. A lot of people misunderstand that as gross receivables or gross expenses or even gross profit. A lot of policies do not cover for that. They're very specific as to net profit analysis. Certain expenses are or are not covered. I think it comes down to analysis on those expenses though, and it's really kind of like a screwed up evaluation, or let me say screwed up policy conditions where things such as mortgage payments and taxes and expenses and things like that most often don't get the coverage or proper classification by an accountant when making a claim. So you need to make sure that you don't fall into and obtain a screwed up analysis based on screwed up policy language and conditions and misclassify things in a way that's going to end up prejudicing you. Because again, we're talking about life after the loss and damage, right? And so how you classify things or what you recover for certainly has a waterfall effect, right? You know, what you do today is going to impact you in the future. Now, that may just be money and cash needing to continue operating the business, but also those documents may be scrutinized by future insurers when you have new losses. And what I'm starting to see is some insurance companies actually want to see the claim documentation. They want to know about your prior claims, how you claim for things, what you've done, and that based on how you classify things or what you've done or their evaluation of your business, an investigation into how it operates, may lead them to modifying language in a policy in a manuscript form or whatever, or adding additional addendums that may somehow prejudice or limit the coverage that you otherwise had already recovered for, because now they don't want to cover you for that, and now you're paying more money for the policy and it's actually got less coverage, et cetera, et cetera. So be really careful as to how you classify those things, and your accountant shouldn't just be any CPA. I always give a comparison to doctors when it talks about, what is a public adjuster, what is an insurance expert representing my interest? Why don't I just rely on the insurance company, or why don't I just hire any lawyer? And I always say is that if you have an issue with your brain, you're not going to go to a colorectal surgeon, right? There's specialty experts, right? There's experts in the accounting field that focus on insurance loss and doing those evaluations. So ensure that you align yourself with someone that actually does this for a living, because your CPA is not going to really understand policy conditions and issues. And while a CPA who specializes in forensic accounting for losses may also not have the best knowledge of certain conditions and issues in your policy, they're going to understand, though, a bit about, based on their past experience, obviously, in dealing with insurance companies and reviewing analysis and trying to put together an analysis, a heck of a lot more than just say your CPA or even your bookkeeper. We at times see that bookkeepers for larger operations will put together the analysis on the income, and then an accountant will review it, and then it'll go out. And really, at the end of the day, who actually put it together was bookkeeper. But the bookkeeper, I mean, without a doubt, has no knowledge of insurance. So as they classify things, while in your accounting records you may say it's one thing, based on policy conditions and language, it may be something else. Something else may be like extra expense to keep the business operating, to mitigate your losses. Something you do to, like, for instance, we represented a gas station where the gentleman sold hot dogs and a sausage and sandwiches during typical normal operation inside the store. Well, when the loss occurred, obviously no electricity, pumps weren't working. He went and actually got a hot dog cart and started selling hot dogs on the street corner. The insurance paid for that extra expense, the expense to purchase the hot dog cart to sell them, as well as the chips and things else that he needed, as well as someone to attend to it. So, and the packaging and the things you put the food in or whatever else, they actually covered that because they realized that he was simply mitigating his expense at the time. So again, not a one size fits all. You got to understand, what does your business need to operate? We had a company that was in produce, and they brought in trailers that ran off generators to keep some of the food, the perishable food, fresh so they can resell it. Well, the cost of bringing those trailers in was enormous, but you also got to be cognizant of the fact that you may have a limitation on what that extra expense is. So, downstream, it's going to be really important that you don't overspend yourself, because when you get on the other side of this, no matter how much money you recovered, maybe it's not enough because you overspent on your mitigation efforts when you should have simply just taken that loss on your income. And again, we're talking about cycle here. So if you want to stay in business, so we have that another opportunity to actually obtain that coverage and that insurance. So track those things, look at those things, look at your P&Ls, make sure you have those things, update your P&Ls. And when you do get a recovery, make sure that your accountants and your bookkeepers are properly accounting for those recoveries in those books and records. Because again, as you do your analysis and you're beyond the rebuilding phase, and now you're getting new insurance, you want to be able to look back and see, what did I need? What did it take? How did I recover from this loss of damage? So keeping accurate accounting of hourlies. A lot of times most owners don't even track their own hourlies, and many broadcasts before this we talked about making sure that, while yes, your hourly workers clock in and clock out, and you as an owner may not be used to clocking in and clocking out, and how important it's going to be to start to do that as it relates to the recovery efforts. So make sure you're tracking those things, make sure you're looking at those things, make sure that you're aligning yourselves with firms that specialize in this. While your accountant, your bookkeeper are very good, they have a tremendous amount of intimate knowledge about your business, they won't about insurance and how the insurance companies are going to interpret that coverage. And again, we're talking about beyond rebuilding. So when we get to that beyond rebuilding phase, and if you misclassify things and you didn't recover for something, you're taking losses where you shouldn't, it's obviously going to impact how you operate your business beyond, and also what type of insurance you buy next. And you may not even realize that you needed or could have gotten coverage that was available, but because you classified or presented your damage in a way, you never even have a consideration for it, and it may not be extra premium dollars. So don't think of that. Or how about in a situation where you have too much insurance, or you have insurance on the wrong things? We have represented many manufacturers of products that insured really the operations of it, but not really anything beyond that, like the shipping of it, despite their contracts require them to carry certain insurance for it. And while they want to shift the burden to the buyer, it's really the supplier or the manufacturer in that case. obligation. Sometimes there's even insurance for suppliers that go in between it. So you're going to learn about these things now while you're in the midst of the recovery and rebuilding phase, and start jotting down. Keep a journal of the things that work or don't work and the reactions you're getting, so that when you go get insurance next time, you know what to look for. You're a little bit more smarter, maybe even a lot more smarter than you were before. You want to educate yourself. Never stop learning about these things. It's a complex coverage policy issues that impact you downstream. It can make you potentially even save money on insurance, because you realize you had coverage for things that you thought that would pay you, but don't, because of they don't cover for these types of claims or these types of losses, or they sold you the wrong insurance. Get in the weeds of this stuff so that you educate yourself. Be a more educated buyer the next time around. So understand these things. I know you're right in the midst of the recovery and the rebuilding phase. A lot of things coming at you. You're dealing with contractors. You're really hyper focused on getting back to business. But don't lose sight of this, because when you get back to business, operating again, and things are good and the economy's swinging in the right direction and people are spending money and you're feeling good about the situation, in an instance, it could all disappear and you could be right back here. And you want to make sure that you have the product that's going to pay you the right amount of money, and you have the documents to support that type of. Maybe out of this, you reconfigure your P&L to protect you in the event that a loss occurs, to mitigate the cost or expense of doing an analysis and expedite the recovery process. That's a key takeaway, right? Set yourself up for an expedited recovery. Well, I want to thank everyone for tuning in this week on the Recovery Report Live, and remind all of you to hit the subscribe button, like us, follow us on all the social media platforms. We want to make sure that you have the insurance information you can use as business owners, real estate operators, community associations, and high net worth individuals. We are your source for actionable takeaways. So again, hit the subscribe button, like us, follow us on all the social media platforms, and tune in every week for our live episodes that give you the information to protect your interests in the event of a loss, as well as procuring new insurance. Again, it's a cycle. You want to make sure that at any point during that cycle, you have the information you need to make sure that you protect your business, your community, and you as a homeowner, as a business owner. It's important that you have what you need, and that's why we're going to continue doing this. But again, on social media, we're constantly putting out information. Shoot us an email. If there's something there that you need more information about, check out our website. Go to the resource section, download tons of information there. Again, thank you all for joining us this week on the Recovery Report Live.